Howdy guys, welcome to E39 Source. It is spring in Ohio, it is green, it is blue, it is beautiful. So, also blue is the Silverstone E39 M5. This one's a 2000, you guys likely know this car. Making a video about actually kind of a different way that I want to start using E39 Source, that I've meant to kind of use it this way for a while. Usually it's me making videos or us making videos that have the potential to help the community, but sometimes we also need help. In fact, most of the time we need help. We'll go out and read a bunch of stuff online and then put it in video form and kind of simplify it. Other times that information doesn't exist, and I come to you guys. You guys are in the same boat, a lot of you own the same car, and many of you are much more knowledgeable than I am. So for about a year, kind of worsening for a year, I've had this steering clunk in here. It's not horrible, it doesn't really affect drivability. I notice when you go all the way to the left, lock left, and then right when you go back to the right, you know, the wheel kind of springs a little bit back right. But then once you're turning the steering column down into the steering gearbox, there's a little thud, and it feels like it's coming from the front left corner. So I got the car into the shop, got it up on the rack. Outer tie rods are new. They have about 3,000 miles on them. These are all Lemforder, genuine BMW, or otherwise OE quality parts. So Lemforder outer tie rods are done. The front lower control arms have new bushings. The center track rod, the center tie rod was done 17,000 miles ago, along with the idler arm, the pitman arm, and the idler arm bushing. So the majority of linkage and componentry in the steering system is pretty new. It's well installed, and my shop, it's the same guy that rebuilt the motor. He knows this car well. He knows the E39 chassis well. He got in there and is having trouble determining what it is. We're kind of leaning towards one of two things. It's either that center steering, center tie rod again, the idler arm bushing, or the steering gearbox. And I really didn't want it to be the steering gearbox because it's difficult to get to. I had the front subframe off this car last year when the motor was going in. The box was right there. Then we put it all back together. So I'm looking at several hours of labor now to drop that front subframe to get to the box. So anyways, I worked out a deal with that shop on labor. I'm going to be replacing the center tie rod as well as the steering box, and that should alleviate the issue. I also have a little vibration right at about 62 miles an hour. Certainly could be tire balance. Some of these wheel weights have been known to fall off from the tire shop that I used recently. I don't know if they got some bad ones or what, but I'll probably have the front tires rebalanced in addition to the work I'm doing. So I am doing the steering box, not a new one. New ones are like $3,000, and that's totally ridiculous. I'm also doing that center track rod. It's right here. This is the Lemforder. Genuine BMW is about 4 times the price, and as far as I know, this is the exact same part. This one's from FCP. It comes with the bolts on there for the, I guess, I don't know what side is what, but say pitman arm and idler arm over there. And then I'm just going to reuse my outer tie rods that have 3,000 miles on them. They'll thread on there. Of course, it'll be aligned after that. This is the bushing that goes for the idler arm. It's kind of a sleeve. I opened it up and looked at it. It's a lot bigger and heavier than I expected it to be. It looks like this. I think the bolt probably goes down at this end and allows that idler arm to pivot with the pitman arm. So I'm going to be replacing those parts. Again, FCP, decent pricing, great shipping, and a lifetime warranty. And then over here from the infamous Adam Bajrak, you guys know him as Clemster maybe on M5 board, he parts E39 M5s. He's had over 50 cars, probably maybe 55 cars by now. I bought this engine from him. It's a 2002 motor and a 2000 car. Had that engine rebuilt. He's a great guy to deal with, super knowledgeable, and a ton of availability of parts. So again, the steering box new, depending on where you source it, is between $2,500 and $3,500. It's ludicrously priced, and I'm not about to drop that on a steering gearbox. This one I got for a very small fraction of that, being that it is used. This is from a 2001 E39 M5 with 94,000 miles on it, so a lot less used than this one. This car, as it sits, has 195,000 miles. All that steering gearbox was original. I'm at 195,199. So I'm looking at about 100,000 less miles on this one. I went ahead and had him include the servo. So you know when you press the sport button in the car and the steering gets lighter, it gets a little bit easier to use. That right there in the middle of the frame with the wire coming out of it, I believe, is the Servotronic, and that thing is pretty simple. It just gets an electrical signal here. There's a plug, and when you hit that button in the car, probably a solenoid or something actuates in there and allows it to get a different feel. So maybe I'll take this out of the box with some gloves on, because it's a used part, so it's dirty, and we'll get a better look at it. But that's the new steering box that's going to go in. So again, steering box, servo, center tie rod, and the idler arm bushing will all be replaced on Wednesday. Today's Monday. We'll get alignment, maybe a front tire balance, and hopefully that does fix things. So I'll try here in a future clip to not only show you more of the power steering, or the steering gearbox, but also see if I can replicate that issue on camera. You're probably not going to hear it. It's more of a feel thing that you get when you're driving the car. Maybe there's a little bit of play in the steering. I did have them look at all of the hardware in the column, and there's probably a U-joint, maybe a rubber kind of vibration absorber in the column, and all of that stuff's fine. So I'm hoping this fixes the problems. So I'm going to be the first to admit, I don't fully understand how this thing works. I can explain the process of internal combustion pretty well, but as far as the steering goes, I'm comparatively at a loss. So that's it. I can't tell you a whole lot about it. It's got a little red plaque there that's upside down, probably part number, maybe build date. We've got some hex bolts over here. This is very heavy. This thing may weigh like 40 pounds. And I do know that that is where the pitman arm goes on the threaded shaft there, and that's what's actually going to move your tie rods and thus move your wheels. And I guess that would be the Servotronic right there. I'm trying to film upside down, but it looks like it says ZF on there. And in the bottom right it says 01-01. So it seems like an early 2001 part perhaps. So as I said, I don't know much about these. I grabbed the spline with a shop towel as not to get dirty, and there's absolutely no play in that. Everything feels really heavy and really solid. So I don't know what to expect from my existing part. I do remember that it didn't look like this. This one is comparatively clean. It's still very black. I'm pretty sure the one in my car had some rust on it, a bunch of oil. It was just really dirty. So this part is certainly less used. Another symptom I kind of notice is at low speeds, radio off, windows down, maybe driving by a building or a car, so that sound is reflecting back into the cabin. Again, from the front left corner, I notice it sounds like a bad bearing, like a kind of a tingling sound, low-key marbles in a can, but not nearly that loud. A high-pitched clicking noise coming as you move the steering wheel. And I had originally thought years ago that that was my wheel bearing. Now I've replaced both front wheel bearings on this car. It's been a little while, but they probably only have 10 or 20,000 miles on them. So I wouldn't expect those to be failing already. I had the shop look at all that. Wheel bearings are fine. They looked at the strut going up into the strut mount, the shock tower here. There's a mount in there, and as you turn the wheels, it's probably got some bearings in it and it moves too. And all of that's really quiet. He put some chassis ears on it, so there's nothing in the suspension that is making that noise. So we're thinking that it's going to be maybe there's bearings in the steering box somewhere that are failing and making that noise as well. So my symptoms then is that noise and a little bit of clunk slash play as you go from lock left back to the right. So here's what the actual explosion of the steering system looks like. This is just on Real OEM under steering system connectors. It's the second explosion under steering. So part number 9, that's that center tie rod that I have in the box over there. This is the actual steering gearbox here. This is what connects to the steering gearbox spline and then to one end of the inner tie rod. That's part number 1. That is your pitman arm. Bolt there connects them, and then that's just held on to the steering box with a bolt and a nut. It just pinches on there on the splines. On the opposite side of the pitman arm, part number 5, is your idler arm that keeps the center tie rod in check as you're moving around. And then the bushing that I replaced that is in the box over there is part number 6, held on with part number 7 bolt and part number 8 nut. Your outer tie rods are part number 10 and 11. They connect to the center tie rod and go ahead and push your wheels out and connect to the knuckle on the wheel. and they're held on with bolt number 4. So really it's a pretty simple system. This is the recirculating ball steering that the E39 540 and M5 have. The V8 model's got this, probably the 535 too over in Europe. The inline 6, 520, 23, 25, 28, and 30 use a different system, a more modern system, what's known as rack and pinion. It's a totally different setup. The rack and pinion couldn't fit in this car with the V8 or the 540 or probably the 535, just it didn't fit. The engine was too big. Personally, I vastly prefer the recirculating ball steering. I think it's way more accurate, I think it's more precise, I think it feels better. The rack and pinion to me feels like it has a lot of play, very sloppy, not much feedback, and most people totally disagree with me. They prefer the rack and pinion, but yeah, we're all entitled to our own opinion. I'll also note that the idler arm 5 and pitman arm 1 really don't wear. They're static, solid metal pieces that, unless your car's in an accident, goes over a huge bump, is otherwise bent or mangled, those parts really don't wear. It may rust, the splines may not fit, but it's not really a wearing part that you need to replace that often. Whereas your center tie rod and your outer tie rods definitely wear. They have ball joints over here. If those bushings bust open, you lose your grease in there, they run dry, it wears out. Those are parts that should be replaced as needed. I mean, mine only lasted 20,000 miles through the 2 Ohio winters they went through. They were destroyed. On cars like my dad's E60 M5 in San Diego that sees 2 rainy days a year, they're 10 years old, the original, they have 80,000 miles, and they look brand new. So it totally depends on the kind of roads and the type of climate that your car's driven in. All right, we're out, warmed up, driving around. I'm gonna see if I can get that creaking, not really creaking, the kind of like bearing noise. It's gonna be really hard to capture on camera though. Nice and quiet here though. I can barely hear it now, there's some stones down. Alright, when you go back to the right. Once there's load put on, back to the right. Yeah, I don't know that the camera's gonna pick that up, but that's it. That thing's freaking awesome.
Your car looks so good.
Oh my god.
Oh man. That hood fitment's so tight.
HRD wheels.
GT3.
What was wrong with the GT3?
997.1 GT3, very nice.
Fast forward nearly 2 weeks, we're at Friday, the week after the last time I filmed. Work's been done, it took a little longer than expected, we got a little bit deeper than we had anticipated. Here's the old tie rod, this is the one with 17,000 miles. I had Dave Walter, BMW in Akron, Ohio, put this guy in a couple of years back. It's a TRW part. After we got it out and inspected it, there's really nothing on this that could have caused that noise whatsoever. It's totally fine. So that part has been sold. Guess a new part doesn't really hurt too much on the Lem Porter. I don't know if that's any better than TRW, probably not. The old steering box came out. It is here. It is exactly 12 months older than the one that I put in. Servo's good on that, so I may be able to sell it. Not sure what's going to happen to that. The clunk is gone due to one of those things, either the box or actually ended up replacing this front left spindle. So where the tie rod comes out and then goes up into the wheel carrier, knuckle, spindle, whatever you want to call this, there's supposed to be a sleeve in there. The tie rod is steel, the spindle, knuckle, or carrier is made of aluminum, so that would wash that out. So there's a steel sleeve in there. Mine's been missing for a while. We actually noticed that last year. Didn't seem to have any ill effects at the time, but you can't buy that sleeve anymore. It's only sold as part of the carrier, which is quite inconvenient, seeing that the carrier is a $350 part or more from BMW, and it takes 3 to 5 weeks to get here from Germany. There are none in the United States. I checked FCP, BMW Mini Parts Store, ECS, Turner, dealerships as far as California, Connecticut, Florida, all over the place. Nobody has it. So I went to good old friend Adam back in Dayton, Maryland, and picked up a used one from an 02 with 78,000 miles. Came with the sleeve, replaced the whole spindle. Part of my reason for replacing the spindle is due to the fact that the BMW dealership actually cracked it a number of years ago, where the lower control arm goes in. They were just beating the hell out of it with a dead blow mallet or something, and it had a very small crack in it. Cracks don't get smaller, they get bigger, so it was just time to replace that spindle. Having said that, now steering, I mean, it feels the same. There's just no clunk. It's not any heavier, it's not any tighter, none of that. Yeah, it may be a little tighter. It feels better. The clunk is gone. So what a fun week this has been. While the car was in there, they noted that the rear ball joints showed a little bit of wear, and the bushings in the rear H-arms, those big aluminum control arms back here that you see right here. These bushings were worn, and BMW doesn't want you to replace the bushings. They want you to replace that whole arm for like $400 a piece. So it turns out PowerFlex does a black poly bushing, and I had the front and rear ones in that arm replaced with those. So new rear control arm bushings and ball joints, fresh alignment. This car seems to be back in fantastic shape. I've only driven it a little bit, but it's smooth, no noises, no clunks. Drives really well. Rained all day yesterday. It's supposed to start raining here shortly. My street is totally jacked up. They're repaving it in asphalt, thank God. But it's not done yet. It's all ground down and there's cones everywhere and it's a mess. So I haven't really been able to do any further testing on it yet. But for the time being, we've got the new parts in there and it's driving really well. Welcome back, guys. I just found these clips in this project in Final Cut Pro. It's been a couple of weeks. I almost forget what I did. So steering box and some rear bushings, tie rods, alignment. Car drives fantastically. I haven't been driving it a ton. It's been crazy busy here. Timmy Fest is this upcoming week, so I want to get this video done and uploaded before all that craziness starts. But I have taken, as of last week, a full day, 12 hours, 10 to 10 to work on this car. The clay bar, the Zano, the wheels, the tires, the paint, the glass, the leather, the carpet, the everything has been detailed. I did not do that last year and did the plastic bag test on the paint, and it was pretty rough. So super happy with the way it turned out. The street's done out there. I've got the mulching done. It's just been crazy, crazy work. Nothing but work here for 10 days or so. And I'm ready to play a little bit for Timmy Fest. So that's this video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. Feel free to email me, Ryan at E39source.com. And I'll talk to you guys in a future video. Take care.